Stuart and Charlotte at breakfast.
BBC Radio Stoke.
23 minutes past 8, thousands of students at Cllr University could hold the key to who becomes Newcastle's next MP. But there's a problem. They're not registered to vote. In fact, the number of people at Cllr who are on the voting register has gone down by nearly 60% since the last general election. That's over 2,000 people, which is more than the majority that the area's Member of Parliament has. So why's all this happened and why does it matter? BBC Radio Stoke's political reporter Phil McCann knows.
Individual voter registration is a reform brought in by the coalition government. It means if you've never voted before at your current address, you have to register yourself so your local council will send you a polling card. Previously, one person at every home could register everyone who lives there. But the government decided that system was outdated and could lead to inaccuracies. But the old system also meant Cllr University could just give Newcastle Borough Council a list of all 3,000 students on campus, so they got a polling card automatically. But now all of the students have to register themselves if they want to vote in the Newcastle area. In 2010, 3,500 people in the Cllr area were registered to vote. But that number is now just shy of 1,300, a drop of 2,200. And if you consider the fact Labour only got 1,500 more votes than the Tories in 2010, you can see why some politicians are very concerned.
Oh, well, let's talk to some of those politicians now. Paul Farrelly is Newcastle's MP on a majority that's lower than the number of students who haven't registered to vote. Ian Wilkes is standing for the Liberal Democrats in Newcastle. Good morning, both. Thanks for coming in. Paul Farrelly first. How worried are you about this, especially if you thought lots of students might vote Labour this time round?
Well, thanks for the reminder about majority, Stuart. We're very worried, in fact. At the beginning of December, when the first register came out, there were just 144 students of a campus of over 2,500 registered to vote. That's gone up since to just over 460 now. And what we're doing is putting a lot of effort into advising students about how they shouldn't lose their right to vote and give a verdict at the general election, for example, on issues like tuition fees.
Lots of those students won't be from Newcastle. They'll have come in from other places. Why should they vote in Newcastle? They might want to vote back home.
Well, you're entitled to vote in both places, or register in both places, either at home or at university. It's very practical to vote at university because they will be actually in term on the day. So at the last general election, 40% of students and 50% in some areas actually voted in Newcastle. And these numbers only affect the first years on the campus. What's happened to second and third years who live off campus is a mystery.
You blame the government's voting reforms, but they were proposed by the last Labour government. What's wrong with the reforms?
No, these reforms were certainly not proposed by the last Labour government. What universities used to be able to do was to be able to register their students en bloc to make it easier. And what we want to do is encourage more young people to vote. So why make it harder? Some people might say, well, what better way to escape the difficulties about issues like tuition fees? Make it more difficult for them to vote.
Well, let's talk to someone who may see tuition fees as an issue. That's the Liberal Democrat candidate, Ian Wilkes. Given the resentment that you might expect there to be from students after your leader did a U-turn on it, you might be quite pleased they're not voting.
I live with the enemy. My son's a student. He's got the tuition fees. Let's not forget, Labour actually bought the fees in. Might not have been as much as what they are now, but it was also pay up front. And quite honestly, my son is the first one in our family that's gone to university. If it had been paid up front, there's no way I'd have been able to afford it to put him up there. But
is it better for you as a candidate if the students vote or if they don't, do you think?
It's better for me if everybody votes. You know, it's there. It's your democratic right to vote. Paul is right. We both agree on the same figures of the 140 in January. It has now gone up to 463, thanks to Cllr Votes. It's a group that's come together, which is a real good idea and what we should be doing. It's all the ones, whether they're Labour, Conservative, Liberal, Greens, have actually come together and they've actually did a non-political day to get students to know what they've got to do. They've emailed them, they've talked to them, they've got notice boards. There's a lot of effort there that's not only that Paul keeps saying he's done, but what the students have done, which is what we really need.
Given that I suspect the majority of listeners to BBC Radio Stoke aren't students at this time of day, how do you think they feel if they live in Woolstanton or Port Hill or Crossheath or Nottingham, somewhere like that, and what they vote might not matter because there's this huge body of people that can't?
Well, just to correct Ian, Labour capped tuition fees at £3,000. They're now £9,000, and I know that very well because I was at the forefront of the battle to make sure that cap was in place over 10 years ago. This is a wider problem because individual electoral registration means that mums and dads can't register the whole family as they used to. So lots of young people, whether they're at university or not, have dropped off the register. And I'm doing stuff awareness meetings at Newcastle College, for example. Across Newcastle, we've lost nearly 3,500 people from the electoral register out of a total of 70,000. That's 5% of the electorate. 1 in 20 has dropped off. That's pretty shocking, really.
Why do you think that is? Are you putting that all down to the reforms, or is it actually people don't want to vote?
Well, I think we want to encourage more young people to vote. And if you're a young person going to university for the first time, or just becoming 18, you can understand it's not your first priority to think of, oh, well, I must fill in that electoral registration form. And it's a bit more difficult these days because they have to take their national insurance number with them as well, which many people will have not used by that age. So it just makes things more difficult. And the thing is, people have until the 20th of April to register to vote, but people may just think, oh, I'm going to vote this time at the general election, and then find out by the time they've decided to do it, it's too late.
Actually, I'm going to disagree with you. That I would have thought it's more easier because you're looking at the younger population and you can actually do it online. I mean, you go to our website and it'll tell you there, click it, you must have it on your website to get voting. So those that want to vote, it's a chance for them actually to do something. Out of the 2,000, and you've got better figures than I have.
That's probably the first and last time one candidate will say that to another in the run-up to the election.
Yeah, well, mine's on a piece of paper and Paul's is really
think
done out.
we've got the same figures on the electorate, but I've got lower figures on the cap on tuition fees.
I have the official email address should you wish to register to vote. It's gov.uk/register to vote. It's as simple as that. You've got till the 20th of April. Thanks very much for coming in. Paul Farrelly, who's the current MP and Labour candidate for Newcastle, and Ian Wilkes, who's standing for the Liberal Democrats.
Across Staffordshire and Cheshire.
Proud of where we live. This is BBC Radio Stoke.